I knew I was caught out.
Tonight, a mum trying to set up her family's future and a trusted Australian bank, both scammed by a sophisticated gang, and it was so well executed. Now the race to stop $700,000 going offshore.
Yakemi Dupree did not lose $760,000 because she was careless. She lost it because she was careful in ways that no longer provide protection. 3 months before the scam began, her husband Zank was killed in a road accident. He was driving from Perth to Melbourne. The family was relocating. They were building something new. And then, 3 hours into the journey, that future collapsed. What remained was a life insurance payout. $760,000, money that represented not wealth, but survival. It was meant to buy a house. It was meant to secure her children's stability. It was meant to convert the unbearable loss of a spouse into something that could still hold the family together. This is the context in which Yakemi searched for a term deposit. She was not investing for profit. She was protecting what little remained. And when she found what appeared to be Macquarie Bank offering a competitive rate, she did what any reasonable person would do. She filled out an online form. She waited for contact. The call came from a man identifying himself as Mark Dickinson. He had a British accent. He spoke with fluency and precision. He explained the process in terms that matched what Yakemi had heard at 10 other banks over the years. When she searched his name on LinkedIn, the profile existed. The photograph was there. The job title matched. The institution was correct. This is what modern impersonation fraud looks like. The scammers did not invent Mark Dickinson. They appropriated him. They harvested the identity of a real employee at a real bank and used it to construct a credibility that could not be easily questioned. Yakemi was not speaking with a stranger. She was speaking with a ghost, a performance built on the scaffolding of a legitimate professional's public presence. The sophistication here is structural. The scammers understood that trust is not simply emotional, it is procedural. When the name checks out, when the LinkedIn profile exists, when the language matches institutional norms, the target has no reason to suspect. The credibility signals are all present. The fraud becomes invisible precisely because it looks like business as usual.
I knew I was caught out.
When you hear how they did it, you might not understand, but you'll certainly sympathise. Yakemi Dupree was preyed upon by a sophisticated gang of ruthless, greedy and organised criminals.
I've been scammed out of $760,000.
In December, Yakemi and husband Zach relocated from Perth to Melbourne. Yakemi and the kids travelled separately while Zach drove. 3 hours out of Perth, Zach was killed in a fatal road accident. The money that's been scammed was his life insurance payout.
I want to warn other people.
When the money came, Yakemi was determined to protect her family's future, planning to buy a house in Melbourne, finding the best rate for a 1-year deposit with what appeared to be Macquarie Bank.
2.5%. I completed the online form with personal information like your name, contact details, and it gave me a notice to say Macquarie will be in contact.
Soon after, Yakemi's phone rang with a man calling himself Mark Dickinson. What can you remember about this Mark Dickinson?
He sounded very sophisticated, British accent, sounded like a banker, very polished in his talking, could explain exactly how the process works, sounded 100% like what I would have heard at 10 other banks in the past.
He was very slick.
Very slick. The information they provided, I Googled him or looked him up on LinkedIn. A Mark Dickinson that works at Macquarie existed on LinkedIn. I don't know if it exists today.
That profile does still exist, and someone of that name does work at the bank. It's just not the person that Yakemi was speaking with. And this is what scammers do, according to cybercrime expert Nick Savitas.
They will take over identities of legitimate employees. You think you're dealing with them, but in fact you're dealing with a scammer who's impersonating them.
And that's not the only devious way Yakemi was conned. As a trained auditor, she's kept the paperwork, including the knockoff Macquarie contract that she was sent.
All the signatures, everything that you would expect.
Emails from the fake Mark Dickinson coming with authentic-looking detail.
Sophisticated, isn't it?
Very sophisticated.
Yakemi Dupree is a trained auditor. Her profession is the detection of irregularities, the verification of documentation, the scrutiny of financial processes. She kept every email. She preserved every contract. She reviewed signatures, and none of it protected her. The documents she received were fabricated with precision. The contracts contained the formatting, language, and structural elements she would have expected from a legitimate institution. The emails carried authentic-looking detail. For someone trained to identify discrepancies, there were no discrepancies to identify. The forgery was comprehensive. This is process-based fraud operating at an institutional scale. The scammers did not rely on emotional manipulation or urgency. They relied on procedural mimicry. They replicated the experience of opening a term deposit so accurately that Yakemi's professional instincts were satisfied rather than triggered. The transfers followed a pattern designed to avoid detection thresholds: 100,000 on April 14th, another 100,000 on April 21st, then daily payments across 4 days, splitting the amounts between 2 separate banks. The rhythm was deliberate. Each transaction was large enough to matter, but paced to appear routine. Neither the Commonwealth Bank nor NAB intervened. This delay is structurally important. Banks possess transaction monitoring systems. They have fraud detection protocols. They have the capacity to pause transfers that display unusual patterns. An individual sending $600,000 to unfamiliar accounts within 11 days represents exactly the kind of activity those systems are designed to flag. But the transfers processed without interruption. Only on April 25th, after the money had moved, did Yakemi experience what she describes as a sinking feeling. By then, the funds had already passed through payment services and were linked to a cryptocurrency exchange. The architecture of international money movement had absorbed her husband's life insurance and converted it into something untraceable. The gangs that operate these schemes understand liquidity. They understand that once money enters the cryptocurrency ecosystem, recovery becomes functionally impossible. The funds are converted, transferred across jurisdictions, and cashed out through networks of money mules withdrawing from ATMs around the world. The $760,000 that was meant to buy a house in Melbourne is now distributed across a system designed to resist exactly the kind of tracing that Yakemi, with her auditor's training, attempted to perform.
Satisfied, Yakemi went ahead. On April 14, she transferred $100,000 of the life insurance money from her CBA account to the so-called term deposit. On April 21, she sent another $100,000 before making daily payments from April 22 to 25, consisting of $100,000 from her CBA account and $40,000 from her NAB account. Later, on the 25th, Yakemi had a sinking feeling.
They are super good at what they do.
It appears Yakemi signed up on an imitation Macquarie website run by the scammers. She's since raised the issue with the Commonwealth, NAB and government investigator AVCA in the hope the funds can be frozen before it's too late. Meanwhile, her son Herc has been her rock as Yakemi prays for a miracle.
It's been very rough, but I gotta stay strong for my mum and my sister, make sure they're all right. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
With her audit background, Yakemi traced the money from her accounts to payment service Cuscal. The cash then passed through a similar service called Maneuver before ending up linked to Elbait, a cryptocurrency exchange. While it's not suggested Elbait are involved at all, crime gangs do favour crypto.
That money gets transferred, converted, and then transferred out, and then cashed out.
The gang's using money mules to withdraw cash from ATMs around the world.
In 2015, cybercrime became larger than the entire illicit drug trade.
Macquarie Bank's website now carries a warning that scammers are pretending to offer term deposits in their name, so Yakemi is clearly not alone. She knows some will say she should have done more, but right now she just wants to help prevent others from becoming victims of these vile criminals.
It's pretty devastating that I've fallen into this trap.
And it's even more devastating that there's nowhere he can turn.
The banks have initiated recovery processes. This is procedural language. It does not constitute a promise. Once funds enter the cryptocurrency ecosystem, the probability of recovery approaches zero. The money mules have already withdrawn. The conversion has already occurred. The $760,000 exists now only as an entry in ledgers that Yakimi can trace but cannot reverse. Her son Herc, still a teenager, has assumed the role of family anchor. He stays strong for his mother and sister. This is the secondary extraction that scams perform. They do not simply take money. They redistribute emotional labor onto those least equipped to carry it. A child becomes a caretaker. A widow becomes a warning to others. Macquarie Bank now displays a notice on their website alerting customers to impersonation scams. The warning exists because Yakimi and others like her have already been victimized. The protection arrives after the damage. This is the pattern. Institutions respond to fraud retrospectively. The systems that might have intervened did not. The systems that now warn come too late. Yakimi says it is devastating that she fell into this trap, but she adds something more. It is even more devastating that there is nowhere to turn. The banks are processing recovery attempts. The government investigator has received her complaint. The money continues to move offshore. She did not fail to protect her family. The systems that were supposed to protect her failed first.